HR plays a vital role when organizations begin operating overseas. Janet Walsh, CEO of Birchtree Global, explains to Canadian HR Reporter TV where human resource professionals can start.
Well, in establishing a business overseas or a company overseas, you need to consider three things. One, the legal environment in which you're now going to operate, the tax or financial environment in which you operate, and the human resources environment in which you operate. All three of those areas change dramatically when a business goes global. For example, we think of an employer-employee relationship. I hire you, I give you money, you work for me. If I don't like it, I tell you to go away. That very basic relationship doesn't exist in other locations. There are very significant differences from country to country in that principal relationship between how people exchange their work for goods and services. So human resources managers need to be particularly careful when they work with businesses going overseas to make sure that their operating managers understand the differences in those relationships. I'll give you a good example. In a lot of businesses, particularly smaller ones, when they go overseas, they've got just a couple of people in the office. And in that kind of case, you need specialists, entrepreneurial specialists that can do maybe more than one task. But as the business gets larger, grows to 100 or 200 people, those businesses, those individuals now have to have different sets of skills, more specialized skills. Well, in many countries, a large number of countries, you can't just swap out the people that started the business with people with other experiences. You may have to go through a union. The government may have a lot to say about that. You may have very high termination penalties for doing it. So if you're going to expand or contract your workforce, you need to know what labor law covers that and what the implication is going to be.
Janet says there are ways organizations can save money.
One that I think is worth considering is the cost-benefit value of an expat. If that person is going to work for you overseas and you've invested a lot of time and effort and energy into that person, one, you want to make sure you get the value back. And expats coming back into their home company after having spent time abroad sometimes wind up there's a high turnover rate among those people. So you may find yourself losing that investment if you don't consider the re-entry side of that, or you don't plan to have that person be successful. But even more important than that is if you are sending somebody overseas, a lot of the benefits that they get from that assignment, housing, car, things like that, those are all going to be considered income and taxable to that person. So if you pre-plan and consider those aspects of that assignment that you can pay ahead of time or pay offshore or pay in another way or leverage the relationship with social benefits in country, you can significantly reduce the taxable implications. There's a big difference if you're paying tax on $100,000 a year as your regular job and $500,000 a year as your expat job. The company's going to cover that delta in most cases, and you can reduce that cost, that delta, that tax payment, by thinking of things ahead of time.